Imagine waking up on a perfectly sunny morning. You step outside. The sun is shining directly on you. But when you look down at the dirt, your shadow is completely gone. And what if I told you that losing your shadow doesn't just mean something is wrong with the light? It means an ancient, malevolent entity has just disconnected your soul from your body and is getting ready to take your place. What is up, guys? Welcome back to Shadows Prevails. Whether you're tuning in from right here in the US or literally anywhere else in the world, I am sending you all a ton of love. I hope you guys are doing well and staying safe out there. Just like always, I'm back today with another terrifying true story for you. So, lock your doors, get comfortable, and let's dive right into it now. Today's episode was actually sent in by our guy Paul. Just a quick background on him: he got his master's in business analytics from Seton Hall University, and right now he's living out in Cape Town, South Africa. He's got a great job out there. Been there for about 2 years now, and he's actually working on settling down there permanently. We've featured Paul's stories on the channel before, both in our regular and special episodes. He really loves Shadows Prevails and goes completely out of his way to collect these wild stories for us, so a massive thank you to him. And honestly, thank you to everyone who takes the time to send us their stories. We could never put a price on that kind of love and support. All we can really do is pray that you all stay healthy and safe. Lately, Paul has been sending us some insane stories dealing specifically with ancient African dark magic stuff that goes way deeper than your average paranormal activity. This particular story came to him from a guy named Jonathan, who lives in Benin City, Nigeria. And just to clarify, there is an actual country called Benin, but this is Benin City, a pretty major historic city right inside Nigeria. This story takes place in a small village right outside of that city, back around 1969 or 1970. Jonathan actually heard this from his dad, or his granddad. They couldn't remember every single tiny detail, but Jonathan put together everything he could and told it to Paul. Paul mentioned that while he was writing this down, he had to call Jonathan a bunch of times just to get the facts perfectly straight. By the way, Jonathan is actually asking for your prayers right now. He recently spent about 20 days in the hospital due to a severe heart condition. He's doing a bit better now, but physically, he just can't work anymore. Since his health took such a massive hit, he's planning on moving back to his hometown. Alright, so back to this village near Benin City. There was this farmer named Amadi. He was incredibly hardworking and just really good at what he did. Farming was his entire livelihood. Now, there were a few other farmers in the village, one of them being a guy named Orino. These guys were decent farmers, but they weren't making much money because they just didn't have enough land to work with, say. The wealthy landowners in the village, who didn't want to farm the land themselves, would only rent their property out to Amadi. Even if the other farmers begged for it, the owners wouldn't budge. Amadi just had this flawless reputation. They completely trusted him. But because of this, Amadi accidentally became the most hated guy among the other farmers. They were insanely jealous of him. Amadi was definitely living a bit more comfortably than the rest of them. And Orino? He couldn't stand it. He actually started bringing a few other jealous guys around, just to threaten Amadi on a regular basis. One night, Amadi was walking back home after selling some wheat at the local market. As he's walking down this dark, empty dirt road, he notices some movement in the fields he was renting. It looked like people were just sitting out there, hiding in the crops. He stops, squints into the darkness, and yells out, "Who's out there? What are you doing?" Nobody answered. So, he walks a little closer, still calling out. But when he finally gets up to the spot, there's nobody there. Instead, he sees that a bunch of his vegetable plants have been violently ripped right out of the ground and tossed into a massive pile. He was furious, but also terrified. This wasn't just a harmless prank. He rented this land on the strict condition that the owners get a cut of the crops. If the crops get destroyed, the owners do not care whose fault it is. Ahmadi is still on the hook for it. His entire reputation as the village's most reliable farmer was on the line. He realized right then and there these haters were literally trying to ruin his life. Ahmadi starts running around the perimeter of the field like a madman, trying to see if whoever did this was hiding nearby. But when he loops back around to the exact spot where the ripped up vegetables were, they were gone. Just vanished. Nothing was there. He just sat down in the dirt, completely confused. His mind was racing. That's when he hears someone whisper his name. He whips around. Nothing now. He's officially spooked. He scrambles to his feet and just starts sprinting toward his house. As he's running through the dense orchard right next to his home, everything suddenly goes dead silent. The wind starts making this weird, unnatural whistling sound, almost like someone was whispering directly into his ear. And then, suddenly, out of nowhere in the pitch black, this incredibly strange, heavy voice speaks up. Ahmadi slowly turns his head, following the sound, and looks toward a massive tree. Standing right there in the dark was a towering, unnatural figure, but it didn't have a normal head or neck. Where the neck should be, there was just a giant gaping hole, and the absolute craziest part? It wasn't headless. It was holding its own severed head in its massive hand, resting it right against its stomach. Ahmadi lets out a blood-curdling scream. He practically crashes through the front door of his house, yelling frantically. His wife and kids rush out in a panic, and right then and there, Ahmadi just passes out cold on the floor. His family quickly drags him inside. About 15 to 20 minutes later, he slowly wakes up. Breathing heavily, he tells them everything: the empty field, the ripped plants vanishing into thin air, and the demonic shapeshifter waiting for him in the orchard. His wife, trying to keep everyone calm, tells him, "You were just walking through the orchard late at night. It was probably just a dark spirit trying to mess with your head." In their culture, believing in shadow entities and trickster spirits, doing things like that, is pretty normal. She already had dinner ready, so they all sat down, forced themselves to eat, and eventually went to sleep. The next morning, the sun comes up, and his wife tries to get him out of bed. But Ahmadi just shakes his head and says, "I'm not going today. I feel totally exhausted. After everything I saw last night, my body just feels wrong. It feels completely unnatural." He didn't even have a fever, but he was completely, physically wiped out. Now, to his wife, this was a massive red flag. In all their years of marriage, Ahmadi had never missed a single day in the fields. Never. Even when he was sick in the past, he'd at least walk out there with her and tell her exactly what needed to be done. For him to just stay in bed, it was completely out of character. He eventually tried to force himself up, just out of pure habit. But he physically couldn't leave the house. His legs simply wouldn't carry him outside. This went on for days. His condition just kept getting worse and worse. He was constantly drained, and his body was literally wasting away in front of their eyes. They got some herbal medicines from a local village healer, but absolutely nothing worked. Then, one afternoon, Amadi is sitting outside the house with his kids, just trying to get some fresh air. Out of nowhere, his youngest son points right at him and says, "Dad, we all have shadows. Why don't you have one?" Amadi lets out a weak chuckle and says, "What are you talking about? Everyone has a shadow." But then, he looks down at the dirt. His stomach completely drops. He doesn't have a shadow. He quickly stands up, walks around in a circle, changes directions, nothing. The bright afternoon sun is shining directly on him, but there is absolutely no shadow on the ground. Panic sets in. He screams for his wife. She runs out, looks at the ground where he's standing, and goes completely pale. She looks at him, her voice trembling, and says, "This is not normal. We need to go to a spiritual healer." Right now, they quickly made their way to a local healer in the village. The guy did some basic chants, blew some smoke, and told them, "Don't worry, everything will be fine." But honestly, that healer had absolutely no idea what kind of demonic nightmare Amadi was actually dealing with. That very night, Amadi falls into a deep, unnatural sleep and has a horrifying dream. He sees that exact same headless entity from the orchard. It slowly walks up to him, calls his name and says, "Hey, Amadi, can you see your shadow? Look closely." It's not with you anymore. In the dream, Amadi looks down, and under the pale moonlight, his shadow is completely gone. The demon just stares at him and starts cackling. It was this piercing, high-pitched laugh that felt like a heavy iron hammer physically smashing into Amadi's brain. He starts thrashing and screaming in his sleep. His wife wakes up in a massive panic. She quickly turns up the wick on the little oil lamp they kept in the room, and what she sees next makes her freeze in pure, unadulterated terror. She sees a stream of thick, pitch-black smoke actively crawling directly into Amadi's ear. As the dark smoke enters his head, his arms and legs start twisting and snapping into completely unnatural angles. In the dim light of the room, she watches his skin literally change color, turning into this sickly, dark, purplish black. She starts screaming her lungs out. Her terrifying screams finally jolt Amadi awake. Even though he had been screaming in the dream, he hadn't actually woken up until that exact second. He sits up, completely drenched in cold sweat, gasping for air. He looks at his terrified wife and goes, "What's wrong? Why are you screaming?" Crying and shaking, she tells him exactly what she just saw, the black smoke creeping into his ear. His skin changing color, his bones twisting. Amadi looks at her, absolutely horrified, and says, "I just saw something in my dream too. It felt like an ancient entity was forcing its way into my body, right through my ear, and my shadow. I saw my shadow chained to a dark wall with a massive, heavy iron chain." They both sat there in the dark, realizing the terrifying truth. They were dealing with something incredibly evil and incredibly dangerous. The next morning, his wife and extended family went completely crazy, trying to find a real, powerful master exorcist. In Africa, there are a ton of different spiritual healers, so they were asking around everywhere, but every single one of them listened to the bizarre symptoms, heard about the missing shadow, and immediately backed out. They all said the exact same thing. This was a level of ancient dark arts they had never seen, and they wanted absolutely nothing to do with it. That whole day passed in a blur of panic and dead ends. Surprisingly, Amadi actually slept totally fine that night. No screams, no twisting limbs. But the next morning, His wife woke up to find the bed completely empty. Amadi was missing. She panicked. Did he finally go to the farm? No. He hadn't left the house in days. A few minutes later, 3 or 4 guys from the village came sprinting up to their house, completely out of breath. They told her that while they were walking to their fields early that morning, they passed by the old village graveyard, and they saw Amadi. He was sitting right on top of a sunken ancient grave, violently scratching and tearing massive chunks out of his own skin. His wife didn't even think. She just sprinted all the way to the graveyard. When she finally got there, what she saw was a terrifying, heart-stopping sight. Amadi's eyes were blood red, not just irritated completely, unnaturally red. And he was speaking, but not in his own voice. He was speaking in this impossibly deep, heavy demonic growl. The language wasn't any human dialect she had ever heard before. It was the kind of ancient guttural voice that literally freezes the blood right in your veins. Some of the braver village guys managed to grab him, pinning his arms down, and dragged him all the way back to the house. While they were struggling to hold him down, one of the older men looked at the wife and said, "Look, I know a guy. He lives way up in the mountains nearby. He's an ancient shaman, a master exorcist. If anyone knows how to break this kind of ancient evil, it's him." Now, this shaman wasn't your average religious leader. This guy was a high-level spiritual warrior. He always carried this specific, carved wooden staff, and around his neck, he wore a necklace with a strange glowing blue stone. Local lore says that an ancient spirit king actually gave him that stone as a gift, and it would literally glow and emit light whenever a demonic entity was nearby. They sent someone up the mountain to get him. When the shaman finally arrived at the house, he didn't even say hello. He just walked right into the room, started making these rapid hand gestures, and began throwing a specific type of blessed dirt all around the corners of the room. Almost instantly, Amadi completely froze. His body just totally locked up, paralyzed. The shaman looked at him, listened to the family's terrifying story, and looked genuinely surprised. He took a deep breath and said, "This is going to be way harder than I thought. Keep him locked inside this room. Do not let him out. And whatever you do not answer him. I'll be back tonight." He turned around and left. Amadi's wife immediately sent her kids to a neighbor's house to keep them safe. From inside the locked room, Amadi kept calling out for her. Sometimes, his voice sounded super sad and pitiful, begging her to just open the door for 1 second. Other times, it was that deep, demonic roar cursing her name. He even started violently slamming his body against the heavy wooden door. Boom, 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 but his wife sat on the floor, covering her ears, and never answered. She knew that answering that voice could be a fatal mistake. The shaman came back right after sunset. The house was dead quiet. He looked at the exhausted family and finally revealed the truth. "Amadi has been hit with severe black magic," he said. "Orino did this, along with a few of the other jealous farmers. They pooled their money and hired a very powerful dark sorcerer named Bala. This guy practices a specific, ancient, and highly forbidden branch of voodoo called a Bisei-juku. He explained that they used a rare shadow-binding hex, which the locals call Ogu-osen. And to do it, the sorcerer didn't just summon a regular spirit. He summoned a highly rebellious, incredibly strong ancient demon from the terrifying Myriad class. Now, just a quick pause here to explain how this works. You know how humans have different professions, Like, some people are master builders, some are doctors, others are mechanics. Demonic entities in this lore are the exact same way. They have different specific tribes that specialize in different dark arts. This specific demon belonged to a notorious tribe called Iromkun. These entities specialize in two very dark things: locking away human memories and stealing human shadows. If they steal your memory, you might wander off into the wilderness for a year, wake up one day, and think no time has passed at all. But if they steal your shadow, they essentially disconnect your soul from your physical body. You slowly turn into a living, breathing zombie, while the demon feeds on your life force. These entities usually look like thick, shifting clouds of black smoke and fire. Regular prayers or religious texts do absolutely nothing to them. And worse, they crave the taste of human blood and flesh. Amadi was currently their prey. The shaman looked at the terrified wife and said, "To fix this, I need to find out the demon's true unspoken name. My own spirit guides are in the astral realm trying to find it right now. But I'm also going to need a newborn baby goat and 2 newborn piglets." He also pulled out an iron ring that he had already melted in holy fire. Suddenly, the shaman closed his eyes and tilted his head. Almost like he was listening to someone whispering directly into his ear, he opened his eyes, and his expression was grim. "My guides have returned," he said, "but they are badly injured." The sorcerer hid Amadi's shadow inside a clay pot, buried under an ancient baobab tree, and it's being guarded by this exact demon. This demon is simultaneously guarding the pot out there and controlling Amadi's body right here in this room. It injured my guides, but thankfully, they managed to get its name. The demon went by the alias Aziza, but it had a true demonic name. It was also the nephew of the demon tribe's warlord, which meant this entity was incredibly arrogant and extremely dangerous. The shaman didn't waste another second. He immediately went to work. The shaman didn't waste another second. He immediately went to work. He sacrificed the baby goat and the piglets, using their blood to draw a protective occult circle right on the dirt floor of the living room. Then, he did something absolutely crazy. He walked over to Amadi's door, the one they were strictly told to keep locked, and he opened it. Amadi walked out completely on his own. His movements were stiff, almost robotic. He walked over and sat right inside the bloody circle, directly in front of the shaman. He slowly lifted his head, looked the shaman dead in the eyes, and sneered in that deep, raspy, demonic voice. "You really think you can save this worthless body? Watch me eat him from the inside out. When I'm done with him, I'm going to end you too." Everyone in the room watched in absolute horror as Amadi's bones literally started shifting. It sounded like thick branches snapping. It looked like his skeleton was trying to overlap itself under his skin. A demonic, sickening laugh ripped out of Amadi's throat. And then, it got worse. It looked like a wild animal was frantically running around underneath the skin of his stomach. Sharp, claw-like shapes were pushing outward, violently trying to rip through his flesh from the inside. Amadi's eyes rolled completely into the back of his head, exposing nothing but bloodshot white. His wife couldn't take it anymore. She let out a blood-curdling scream, started crying hysterically, and actually passed out right there on the floor. Some of the relatives in the room panicked, backing against the walls, yelling, "Shaman, stop the ritual. You're going to kill him. Stop." But the shaman stayed totally calm. He didn't even flinch. He looked at the terrified relatives and said, "It's an illusion. It's just the demon trying to scare us so we won't attack." He slowly turned his gaze back to Ahmadi. He looked dead at the possessed farmer and said, "Are you done playing your little games?" The room went dead silent. The shifting under Ahmadi's skin instantly stopped. The shaman continued, "You think you're untouchable? You think wearing his physical body is going to scare me? Don't forget, I used your own tribe to find out exactly who you are." The demon inside Ahmadi violently snapped back, practically spitting his words. "So what if you know my name? You think that saves him? Do you know how your ancestors died, old man? I chewed on their livers. And today, I'm going to rip Ahmadi's liver out and throw it right in your face." The shaman didn't blink. "Your threats mean absolutely nothing to me." The demon let out a wicked, mocking laugh. "That little blue stone and that stupid stick the Spirit King gave you, they won't save you today. I'm going to soak them in Ahmadi's blood. I am never giving his shadow back." Hearing this, the shaman channeled all of his spiritual energy. He grabbed his glowing blue stone, wrapped it tightly around his carved wooden staff, raised it high in the air, and slammed it as hard as he could into the dirt floor. Bam! Instantly, thick, pitch-black smoke started violently pouring out of Ahmadi's ears, nose, and mouth. The demon let out a deafening, inhuman scream of pure, agonizing pain. It sounded like 100 voices screaming at once. Because the demon was in so much agonizing pain, it temporarily lost its focus. And, in that split second, the shaman commanded his spirit guides in the astral realm to attack the baobab tree, shatter the clay pot, and free Ahmadi's shadow, as the dark smoke completely evacuated Ahmadi's body. Swirling aggressively near the ceiling, the demon's voice echoed one last time in the room. It was a menacing, echoing whisper. "I'm leaving, old man, but remember, I will finish my job." Ahmadi immediately collapsed face first onto the floor. The demon was so incredibly fast that the shaman didn't even get a chance to trap it. He wanted to rescue the shadow first and then capture the entity, but the demon was just too quick. Escaping back into the spiritual realm, the shaman wiped the sweat from his forehead and told the terrified family to rest, but warned them that it wasn't completely over yet. By dawn, Ahmadi finally regained consciousness. He was incredibly weak, barely able to sit up, but the demonic blood-red color was totally gone from his eyes. And sure enough, when the morning light beamed through the window and hit him, his shadow was cast perfectly on the floor. The shaman warned the family before leaving. Black magic always leaves a stain. This demon is arrogant and stubborn, and he'll try to come back. Be very careful. He told them he'd return in a week. Exactly a week later, the shaman returned with incredible news. After hunting the demon for 5 straight days in the spiritual realm, he finally caught it. And because that demon had injured the shaman's spirit guides earlier, those same spirits took their brutal revenge and executed the evil entity. Ahmadi was finally completely safe now. Ahmadi never actually confronted Orino or the other farmers who cursed him. But he did learn his lesson. From that day on, he stopped hoarding all the farming contracts. He only rented enough land to support his own family and left the rest of the fields for the other farmers. He even went around the village and apologized to people, even though he technically hadn't done anything wrong. The farmers who cursed him never apologized. But once they saw that Ahmadi was leaving land for them to work, they backed off completely. and never tried to curse him again. Ahmadi lived a long, normal, peaceful life until he eventually passed away of natural causes. Honestly, guys, this story completely blew my mind. We hear about ancient entities trapping souls or stealing memories all the time on this channel. But stealing someone's shadow? Using it to disconnect their soul? That is next level dark magic. We always hear people say things like, "Don't step on a spirit's shadow," or "I won't even step on your shadow." But do we ever actually stop to think about how important our shadows are to our existence? Probably not. Actually, while I was telling this story to you guys today, I caught myself looking down a few times, just to make sure my shadow was still there. Thankfully it is. But what about you guys? Look around whatever room you're in right now. Find a light source. Can you see your shadow? Because if you look down right now, and nothing is attached to your feet, you might be dealing with something far worse than just a bad day. Huge shout out again to Jonathan and Paul for sending in this absolutely insane piece of history. I really hope you guys enjoyed tonight's episode. If you did, do me a massive favor, hit that like button, drop a comment down below, share this video with a friend who loves horror, and make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss another terrifying story. Until next time, stay safe, watch your back, and have a good night.